Welcome to Muddy River News this week. I'm David Adam. I'm the editor here at Muddy River News, and I'm pinch hitting for Bob Goff this week. And joining me today is Bryan Stokes, the president of Quincy Recycle, which is celebrating 50 years under the Stokes family name. Welcome, and thank you.
Thank you for having me.
50 years under the family name. Tell the people, so many people have grown up around here. They knew what Quincy Recycle is, but my guess is they don't know a lot about the history.
Yeah.
How'd your dad get involved and get into this business?
My dad, Keith, my mom and dad are still doing great and they're healthy. And my dad worked for a paper mill in Quincy that used to be called Celotex and then BPB Celotex. He transferred to Quincy about the time I was born with that company because he wanted to be closer to home. He is from, my mom and dad are from near Edina, Missouri.
Okay.
So he transferred to Quincy, was working at a paper mill, and he was maybe a year or two into that and was approached by a gentleman named Harvey Carnes, who owned Recycling Engineers. It turns out that engineers don't like it when you put engineer in your name and you're not one. So the business wasn't doing well, and Harvey approached my dad and asked him to join the business and buy into it, pull it out of debt and buy into it. My dad was able to do that, and from about 1974 on, he was at the company.
And when did you take over for him? When did you get to send him to the golf courses and you got to start taking over the business?
My father retired pretty young, so yeah. I graduated from college in 1995 and started in the business full time. I worked in summers and things like that. And 2 years later, my dad said, "Hey, we're moving to Florida, so have you decided if this is what you want to do?" It was the first conversation we ever had about potentially buying the business. So 1997, with a lot of help from mom and dad, I purchased the business.
Was this something that, it was always part of the family business? You worked summers there as a kid, always had a job there. But as you were growing up, you said that was the first time you and your dad had really talked about any sort of line of succession. Was this something, shoot, I'm ready to go do this and this and this? Or did you always kind of know, what, I kind of like what my dad's doing?
No, I admired what my parents did. They worked together for the last 15 years or so. And in a really difficult environment, they ran and built a terrific business. But my dad's not a talker, and I thought I wanted to wear a suit and tie to work every day. And so it didn't come up until my junior year of college. And my mom kind of was the puppet master of that conversation. And she indicated to me that, "Are you aware your father would be interested if you wanted to work in the business?" And she said to my dad, "Keith, are you aware that Bryan has an interest in working in the business?" And so I give my mom all the credit, and I feel very fortunate to have had the opportunity.
So what are the challenges now in recycling for you as opposed to what they were for your dad?
The challenges that my father had were related to markets. There are more markets for the commodities that we help manufacturers with, waste and commodities like paper, plastic, metal. The movement, the information, and ability to market commodities is quite a bit easier now than it was 20, 25 years ago.
Okay. So when you went from, basically, Quincy Recycle went from the one business here in Quincy, Illinois. How many locations now do you have across the Midwest?
We have 8 recycling locations in the Midwest. And for the most part, we service industrial manufacturers. And then we have Quincy Farm Products, which is a business we developed that is adjacent to the recycling business. We help manufacturers with food byproducts. So not the restaurant scrap, but big cereal manufacturers and folks like that.
So talk a little bit about, you talk a lot about, when I was preparing for this, about sustainability.
Yeah.
For people who are watching this, define sustainability for them.
That's a tough one. I think it has a different definition for just about everybody.
Sure.
So for what we do, and when we go through large industrial manufacturers, we're usually going through a 300,000 plus square foot facility. And they might have a dozen different waste streams. And what we do is we figure out first what their objectives are. And if their objectives are, we want to go zero landfill, and we're sure that's the objective, then we work really hard on that. Mm-hmm. If their objective is, we want to harness all the revenue that we can, and we are okay discarding items that are going to cost more to recycle, because those exist too, then we follow those directions and we work real hard for them. So sustainability to our clients would have a different definition for each of them.
Okay, so I think most people, when they look at sustainability and they think about recycling, they think of paper, plastic, metal.
Yeah,
that's the stuff that we used to set up by the curbside, for the people to pick up. For people who don't know much about the business, what other things can you recycle, can you reuse that maybe people don't necessarily know about?
Yeah, it may not impact households in the area, but the fastest growing segment for us are helping processing plants with their organic waste. Okay. So we are doing, one of our team members in Iowa really kickstarted this for us, and we're doing more processing waste from meat processors and offal and things of that nature, which can go to digestion, which digesters ultimately create energy that can go back onto the grid. It can go land application. It can have valuable minerals and contents that are good for land application. Mm-hmm. Lots of paperwork, and when it comes to that stuff. Right. So thank God we've got a Phil Hildebrand on the team to keep us within the lines. But I'd say that's a unique thing that where we're doing tens of thousands of tons of that product every month.
And one of the things that I read about, obviously the Quincy Farm Products business is really like 10 years old, so that's still relatively new. Yeah. But you're also doing a lot of work with shredding for, basically getting rid of data for companies and such, right?
We're not in the document destruction business per se. We were in that business for a few years. Okay. And found that there are other people that are better at that than we are. So
know your strengths, right?
Yeah, right. We've tried a number of things that haven't worked, but we only talk about the ones that work real well. But that product comes to each of our 8 recycling facilities. We work with document shredders and things like that.
How has the industry, again, you started out, mom and dad in Quincy, Illinois. Not only now do you have the 8 different locations, but you're a very globalized country as well, a corporation as well. How has globalization changed your business model?
Well, it's changed it a bunch, and it continues to change as the external environment changes. So there was a 10-year stretch when an awful lot of product from 4 or 5 of our locations ultimately went to China or Southeast Asia. Right. And that has slowed down quite a bit with restrictions on importing waste paper into China. So, but we still ship some commodities to Southeast Asian countries and to Europe and elsewhere. India was a pretty important outlet for us for a short time, and then things changed again, and and we weren't able to ship so much.
Well, that sounds like a lot of your business model has been just sort of adjusting to the, you used to work with these countries, now you don't. You used to recycle these things, now you don't. Now, I mean, you're always adjusting on the fly. Would that be a good way to use that phrase?
Yeah, we do a fair amount of planning, and then we change the plan when it goes to hell. That's what we do.
How much of the company business is driven out of Quincy, and how much of it is, you have the different sites and they sort of operate on their own?
That's a great question. The way that I'd have drawn it up on the napkin was that all the really big decisions would be made in Quincy and at this office upstairs. And through a little, I got some good coaching along the way, including from my father 10 years after he retired.
Right.
That led to what we have today and have had for quite some time, which is a decentralized model. So our general managers at each of the territories and locations really do run the business. They have to be ethical, follow the guidelines,
right.
Adhere to our core values, which are important to us. But if the next big thing is setting up popsicle stands, then we might tell somebody they can try it.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that we do today that we didn't do 10 or 15 years ago, well, very few of them were my idea. They're generated from the folks, the team members that are knocking on doors trying to help manufacturers.
Got the boots on the ground.
Or our territory general managers that are leading the business units. And then when we have some success, like we have recently in the organic space, land application in Iowa as an example, then we take that new skill set and we take it to Indiana or to St. Louis or to Wisconsin, different markets. So that's been really, really good for us.
With all the changes that have gone on, not just in 50 years, but just in the past few years, what can people expect? What can you expect for the next, I'll just say 20 years, because I'm going to guess by that time, you may be having that conversation with your son that your dad had with you about, hey, what do you think about taking over the business, kiddo?
Right.
But I mean, there's still things that are going to happen here. What could people expect to know about the future of the recycling industry?
Well, I think there has been a fair amount of consolidation. It's still a space the space that we occupy, helping industrial manufacturers, is still largely fragmented, but there has been more consolidation in the last few years, and we've been a part of that as we've grown our footprint. So I would expect that there will be more of that, and I would expect that we'll participate in that and try to continue to expand our footprint.
50 years. It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Right.
And now here you are at the forefront of an industry that is, it's worldwide. Here it is in little old Quincy.
Right. Yeah, I feel really lucky. I give all the credit to my parents and what they built. They built a really strong foundation. Yeah. And when I came into the business, it was kind of ready to build upon. So I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity.
Congratulations on 50 years.
Thank you.
Here's to 50 more. Hopefully it'll stay in the Stokes family name. I'm looking forward to watching Luke come in here in 50 years and be interviewed by one of my children. How about that?
I hope to be alive for it. That would be nice.
That would be nice. Bryan Stokes, thank you very much.
David, thank you.
Appreciate the time, and thank you for joining us this week on Muddy River News. This week you can catch this video and other videos at our website, muddyriver.tv.